You have been chasing mirages. You told yourself, once I get there, then I will finally feel alive. Once I achieve that, then I will allow myself to be happy. You have hung your peace on a promotion, your self-respect on a number, your worth on applause. And every time you arrived at some little peak, the feeling faded faster than you care to admit. Listen carefully. That emptiness is not a defect in you. It is a defect in your definition of success. Success is not a place where you arrive. It is the quality of life you experience while you are becoming the person you were meant to be. The world has been lying to you from your earliest days. It showed you images of men surrounded by symbols, houses, carriages, titles, companies, shining offices, and whispered, "This is success." It did not show you the nights those same men spent restless, dissatisfied, terrified of losing what they had grabbed, ashamed of what they had become to gain it. The world sees the crown and calls it victory. It does not see the corrosion underneath. If you follow that version of success, you can gain everything and feel nothing. I am not telling you to despise achievement. Achievement is noble when it flows from the right source. I am telling you to put achievement in its proper place. The true measure of success is not merely what you accumulate, but who you are becoming while you work, build, strive, and serve. If, in the pursuit of your aims, you become smaller inside, more bitter, more dishonest, more anxious, more empty, you have failed, even if the crowd shouts your name. If in the pursuit of your aims you grow larger inside, more disciplined, more grateful, more courageous, more at peace, you are succeeding even if few yet notice. You know this already in moments of quiet honesty. Think of a time when you stretched yourself, not for show, but because something in you demanded growth. Perhaps you learned a skill that once frightened you. Perhaps you controlled your temper where in the past you would have exploded. Perhaps you rose early for weeks to give your best to a task that no one else understood. Do you remember the feeling? Not the pride of boasting, but the quiet satisfaction that whispered, "I am not who I used to be." That feeling is the joy of becoming. That, and not the applause that may or may not follow, is the essence of success. Your error has been this. You have tried to borrow that feeling from events outside you. You have chased titles, quantities, praise, looks from others, as if they could plant in you what only growth can create. You have treated the fruits of success as though they were the roots. They are not. The root is your character. The root is your daily discipline. The root is your thought life, your inner dialogue, your hidden choices. When those are weak, all you can build is a painted facade that trembles with every change of wind. When those are strong, you can lose much and yet remain unbroken. Success, as we are speaking of it, begins the moment you decide that the person you are becoming matters more than the image you are projecting. You can deceive others with appearance. You cannot deceive your own conscience. It knows when you are shrinking to fit the world's approval. It knows when you are betraying your deeper possibilities in exchange for a little comfort. It knows when you are hiding from the work your soul is asking of you. Every time you betray it, your inner joy dims, no matter how many outward winds you gather. You have been taught to measure your life by visible milestones. A better house, a higher wage, a wider circle, a louder applause. Start measuring by invisible ones. Today, I resisted an old temptation. Today, I brought order to a corner of my affairs that had been chaotic. Today, I spoke truth where I once would have lied. Today, I did my work with more concentration than yesterday. Today, I treated myself with more fairness, and others with more patience. These are small movements to the eye, but to your spirit, they are steps up a mountain. The joy you feel when you notice them is not illusion. It is your nature recognizing its own advancement. Understand this law. Every genuine effort to grow, no matter how small in the world's eyes, carries its own reward in the moment. The reward is not always money or praise. It is dignity. It is the sense that your hours are not being squandered in aimless drifting, but invested in the forming of a man you can respect. That dignity does not wait for some distant someday. It can be felt tonight when you lie down, if you have spent the day becoming instead of merely escaping. Look at how you have treated your days until now. How many of them have been spent trying to run away from yourself? You drown discomfort in distraction. You silence the call to purpose with noise. You fill your schedule with busyness that leads nowhere, simply to avoid the pain of facing what you could be. Then you call this avoidance rest and wonder why you do not feel restored. There is no joy in running from your own potential. There is only momentary numbness. Now imagine another way. Imagine that you wake with a clear aim for the day, an aim that fits into a larger purpose you have chosen deliberately. You know which part of yourself you are training today. Your body, your mind, your skill, your patience, your courage. You move through your tasks not as a victim of demands, but as an active builder of your own destiny. The work may still be hard, the circumstances imperfect, the rewards delayed, but under it all is a steady flame. I am in the process of becoming something greater than I was. That flame is joy, quiet, not loud, steady, not explosive, but joy nonetheless. You may say, this sounds like philosophy. I need practical instructions. Here is your first instruction. Decide once and for all what kind of man you intend to become, regardless of what you own or where you stand. Describe him in terms of qualities, not trophies. Is he disciplined or careless? Honest or convenient? Calm or easily shaken? Generous or close-fisted? Persistent or easily discouraged? Clear in thought or muddled? Responsible or blaming? Write this man down in plain words. This is your definition of success, stripped of costumes. Once you have written this, ask yourself a harsh question. Is the way I am living today moving me toward this man or away from him? Not in theory, but in fact. Your habits answer, not your hopes. Does your current routine strengthen your mind or dull it? Does your conduct under pressure resemble his or its opposite? Do you speak as he would speak or as your fears drive you? In this moment, do not flatter yourself. The joy of becoming is not for the man who lies about his starting point. It is for the man who dares to see himself as he is and still chooses to climb. Here is your second instruction. Stop postponing your life to when things settle down. Things seldom settle down. They only change their form. Success, as becoming, does not wait for ideal conditions. It uses present ones. If your days are crowded, you carve out a small, protected portion and devote it to the man you intend to be. If your work is menial, you perform it with such excellence that it becomes training and discipline. If your finances are tight, you use that very restriction to develop creativity and self-control. The joy you seek is not in the size of your stage, it is in the sincerity of your performance upon it. Third instruction. Refuse to mortgage your present soul for future comfort. The world will tempt you to do things that kill a piece of you inside in exchange for advancement. It'll ask you to deceive, to flatter falsely, to trample others, to betray your own standards because that is how things are done. If you comply, you may gain something. Briefly, but in the process you lose the clean, solid joy that comes from knowing you are becoming a man of honor. And without that, every acquired comfort feels hollow. I tell you plainly, No amount of gold can compensate for the misery of living daily with a self you despise. On the other hand, even modest circumstances can be rich if you meet them as a man in training rather than a man in retreat. Success in its truest form is when your outer pursuit and your inner growth walk together. Each step forward in skill is also a step forward in character. Each challenge overcome on the outside corresponds to a limitation broken on the inside. That harmony is what makes effort satisfying. You will find that once you begin to define success as the joy of becoming, the comparison with others begins to lose its poison. You stop obsessing over who is ahead of you, who has more than you, who seems to rise faster. You realize that every man is on his own mountain. Some are climbing a shorter hill and shouting loudly about their progress. Some are lifted briefly by luck, only to slide down again. Some stand still, posing as champions while the rock beneath them crumbles. Why should their positions determine your peace? Your task is your own ascent. Measure your days, then, by this question. Did I become even slightly more like the man I intend to be? If you did, you succeeded today. Even if no one saw, even if your bank account did not change, even if the world awarded you nothing, and if you did not, if you retreated, indulged, surrendered to impulses that drag you backward, that is failure for that day, even if you impressed many. This scale is unforgiving, but it is honest. It prevents you from calling decay success simply because it wears a shiny coat. As you embrace this new definition, something powerful happens. The work that once felt meaningless begins to feel purposeful because you tie it to who you are becoming. The delays that once maddened you become bearable because you treat them as seasons of inner strengthening. The setbacks that once broke you become lessons that refine your approach. You stop living only for the distant day when everything is perfect and start extracting meaning from the struggle itself. That, and not the fleeting thrill of arrival, is what will sustain you through the long road. Do not misunderstand me. There is joy in arriving at goals. There is satisfaction in seeing plans fulfilled, in holding tangible proof of your effort. But this joy is short-lived if nothing deeper is happening within you. Without growth, arrival quickly turns to boredom. Boredom to restlessness. Restlessness to self-destruction. A man who has built no inner life must constantly seek larger and louder victories just to feel alive. He is like a starving man who keeps ordering bigger plates of food that cannot nourish him. You are being invited to a different way, a path where each day of honest effort already contains a portion of the reward. When you live this way, the greatest thrill is not what you have, but what you are becoming capable of. You look at your own thoughts and reactions and say, I am sharper than I was. I am steadier than I was. I am kinder and stronger than I was. That is a form of wealth that cannot be stolen by thieves, taken by markets, or erased by misfortune. So I ask you directly, will you continue to chase a definition of success that leaves you empty at the summit? Or will you dare to shift your aim, to live for the joy of becoming, to treat every day as training, to count as victory not just what you collect, but what you are? Your answer to that question will determine whether your remaining years are spent decorating a shell or developing a soul. Success, in its highest form, is reserved for those who choose the second. If you are willing to accept that success is found in the joy of becoming, then your first task is to build a life that allows you to feel that joy every day. Not in fantasy, but in fact. This does not mean abandoning your present duties or throwing away your responsibilities. It means using them differently. It means turning your ordinary day into a workshop where your character, mind, and spirit are under deliberate construction. Most men treat their day as something to endure. They drag themselves through their tasks as if life were a sentence to be served. Then they wonder why there is no joy in it. Joy cannot live where a man moves as a slave to his own hours. Begin by bringing intention into your morning. When you rise, you can either wake up as the same man you were yesterday, or you can wake up as the craftsman of a better man. The difference lies in a few quiet moments of decision. Before the noise of the world enters, sit alone and ask yourself plainly, what am I building in myself today? Not what do I hope will happen, but what part of my character will I train? Maybe you decide that today you will become more disciplined in your work, more patient in your speech, more orderly in your surroundings, more focused in your thinking. Choose one or two qualities only. A scattered aim produces a scattered day. Once chosen, bring that aim down to specific actions. Do not leave it as a noble cloud. If you intend to grow in discipline, decide that you will start your work at a precise time and not delay it for comfort's sake. Decide that you will finish one important task before you allow yourself lesser ones. If you intend to grow in patience, decide that when irritation rises, you will pause, breathe, and answer softly rather than sharply. If you intend to grow in clarity, decide that you will take time to think on paper about one stubborn problem instead of avoiding it. These small acts are the tools that shape the inner man. As you move through the day, watch yourself as both worker and witness. Do not drift in a fog. Observe your own reactions. When something does not go your way, see it as material. Instead of saying, why must this happen now? Say, here is my lesson. When someone speaks unfairly to you, you have a chance to practice dignity. When a task bores you, you have a chance to practice attention. When fatigue comes, you have a chance to practice finishing what you started. This point of view does not remove difficulty. It redeems it. You stop seeing the day as an enemy and start seeing it as a training ground. This is where the joy begins to appear. Not as laughter and excitement, but as a quiet satisfaction that accompanies you even when things are not ideal. You know what it feels like to go to bed after a day wasted in avoidance. You lie down heavy, restless, blaming the world, but secretly blaming yourself. Now you will begin to know what it feels like to lie down after a day in which you kept faith with your intention. Even if the day was hard, there is a sense of inner order. I did not hide. I did not collapse. I used what was given. That feeling is priceless. It is the early fruit of becoming. Understand that the joy of becoming is linked to effort, not ease. If you chase only comfort, you will constantly run away from the very experiences that could make you proud of yourself. You will avoid challenges, avoid honest self-examination, avoid any endeavor that risks exposing your weakness. Then you will complain that life feels dull and meaningless. How could it feel otherwise? You have wrapped yourself in safety so tightly that no growth can reach you. The tree that refuses wind will never grow strong wood. You must make peace with discomfort, not as an enemy, but as a sign that you are stepping out of the small circle you have been living in. When you stretch your mind to learn, it feels awkward at first. When you train your body after years of neglect, it protests. When you begin to speak truth where you used to stay silent, your heart beats faster. When you set boundaries with those who waste your time, you feel uneasy. All of this is natural. The joy does not come in the first sting. It comes when you realize, I can endure this. I did not die. I am expanding. Many men wait for joy to come only at the end of a journey. They say, once I have mastered this skill, once my body is transformed, once my finances are secure, then I will feel good. They turn the present into a narrow, joyless tunnel they must crawl through to reach some distant light. No wonder they give up. A man who denies himself all satisfaction until he arrives will rarely arrive. The road is too long to be walked in misery. The secret is to treat each honest effort as a partial reward. You say to yourself, I have not arrived, but today I moved a step, and that is worthy of respect. That respect is the seed of joy. Do not confuse this with self-satisfaction that excuses mediocrity. I am not telling you to praise yourself for laziness and call it acceptance. I am telling you to recognize progress where it is real, even if it is small. The man who cannot notice small advances will never persist long enough to see large ones. A sculptor does not despise the early cuts in the stone because the statue is not yet visible. He knows that the beauty he seeks is hidden in those ugly, rough beginnings. You are the stone and the sculptor. Every disciplined choice is a cut. Every honest hour of work is a cut. Every act of courage is a cut. The statue is your future self. As you practice this way of living, pay attention to how you speak about your journey. Your words either feed joy or poison it. When you talk about your efforts as burdens, I have to do this, I have to do that, life is nothing but grind. You make yourself a victim of your own mission. No wonder you feel miserable. Try speaking differently. I get to train myself today. I choose to do what others avoid. I am privileged to have work that sharpens me. At first, this may sound forced, but with repetition, it becomes natural. Your subconscious accepts it and begins to supply you with energy instead of resistance. Guard yourself against the habit of constant complaint. Complaint, even about small things, is a thief of joy. It teaches your mind to focus on what is missing instead of what is forming. Men who complain all day cannot feel the joy of becoming because they spend their energy cursing the very conditions that are meant to develop them. If your work is hard, use it to become resilient. If your surroundings are humble, use them to become resourceful. If your path is slow, use it to become patient. Each time you choose this interpretation over complaint, you protect your inner joy. Another enemy of the joy of becoming is comparison. When you measure your progress by the life of another man, you place your peace in his hands. You will always find someone further ahead in some area. Their success may be real, or it may be a carefully arranged display. You likely do not know what price they paid or what compromises they made. Yet you use their image to condemn your own journey. This is foolishness. You are not walking his road. You are walking yours. The only fair comparison is between who you were and who you are becoming. Ask yourself, am I stronger than I was a year ago? Wiser than I was yesterday? More honest with myself today than I was in my youth? If the answer is yes, you have reason for joy, even if you still fall short of your ultimate ideal. If the answer is no, then your task is not to envy another man, but to return to your own discipline. The race is not against him, it is against the pull of your lesser nature. Each time you win that race, even in a small way, you experience the clean satisfaction that no outside comparison can provide. Let us speak also of rest. A life of becoming is not a life of frantic exhaustion. It is not the endless pursuit of activity for its own sake. Many men mistake rest for idleness and idleness for rest. Idleness is the avoidance of responsibility. Rest is the renewal of strength for responsibility. When you have spent your day in sincere effort toward your chosen growth, you can rest without guilt. You can sit quietly, read, reflect, enjoy simple pleasures, and feel refreshed because you know you have earned this pause. That knowledge turns even simple moments into joy. But when you have avoided your work, when you have fled from your duties, your so-called rest does not restore you. You feel uneasy, haunted by the tasks you dodged, the promises you broke to yourself. Your body may be still, but your mind is not at peace. The joy of becoming is intimately tied to honest labor. You do not have to work like a machine, but you must work like a man who respects his purpose. There is a deep, ancient satisfaction in that, a satisfaction your ancestors knew when they ended a day of real effort. You will also need to reconsider what you call failure. Right now, failure is likely a word that brings shame and paralysis. You treat it as a verdict about your worth. This mindset kills joy. It makes every misstep feel like proof that you should never have tried. In such a state, you live timidly, avoiding any venture that might expose you to failure, and so you avoid everything that could cause real growth. You become a clever prisoner, guarding the door of your own cell. In a life devoted to becoming, failure must be redefined as feedback. It is not the end of the story, it is part of the training. When a child is learning to walk and falls, we do not shout, "You have failed, walking is not for you." We understand that falling is the process of learning balance. Yet as adults, we forget this simple truth. We expect to move from ignorance to excellence without the mess of trial and error. That expectation is childish. If you want the joy of becoming, you must allow yourself to be a beginner in some areas for a while. The stumbles you endure there are not disgrace. They are evidence that you have stepped out of the stagnant comfort of never trying. When you fail, ask precise questions. What exactly did I do? What exactly did not work? What can I adjust next time? This attitude turns failure into a teacher instead of a tormentor. With every lesson, you become more skillful, more humble, more resilient. And as you notice this improvement, the sting of failure lessens. You begin to feel a strange gratitude even for the disappointments, because they reveal weaknesses you can now strengthen. That is a higher joy than the shallow pleasure of never being tested. Remember also that no one else can feel for you the inner satisfaction of your own progress. Others can congratulate you or ignore you. They can praise or criticize. But the real joy, the sense of walking forward, of outgrowing your old self, belongs only to you. This is why you must not build your life on the applause of the crowd. Applause comes and goes. Sometimes it follows real merit. Sometimes it follows noise and show. If your only joy comes from being seen, you will live in panic when the audience turns its head. Build instead on the quieter foundation of self-respect. Self-respect grows each time you behave in harmony with your best understanding. When you keep your word, even in small matters, you respect yourself. When you do your work thoroughly instead of hastily, you respect yourself. When you admit a mistake and correct it, you respect yourself. When you put effort into your growth, even when no one is watching, you respect yourself. These acts may not bring cheering, but they build something sturdier, a sense that you can trust your own character. That trust is a source of deep joy. You may be tempted to ask, what about money? What about status? What about visible success? I will answer you plainly. When you devote yourself to becoming more capable, more reliable, more disciplined, more thoughtful, you inevitably increase your value in any field you choose. The world has always needed men who can be trusted to think clearly, work steadily, and stand firmly. Such men are rare. Their services are sought. Their contributions are noticed over time. Wealth and recognition often follow them, not because they chased these things directly, but because they became the kind of men to whom opportunity is drawn. And here is the important point. If you have learned to find joy in becoming, then when money and recognition come, they do not corrupt you. They do not become your only source of worth. They remain tools and bonuses. You will enjoy them, yes, but you will not be controlled by them. If they grow, you stay steady. If they shrink, you stay steady. Your real treasure is your character, your discipline, your developed mind, your strengthened spirit. No turn of fortune can take these away. Think of success, then, as a fire you build within, not a trophy you chase without. Each decision for growth is a piece of wood added. Each act of courage is a spark. Each day of consistency is a breath that keeps the flame alive. At first it may be small, barely warming your hands. With time and attention, it becomes a steady blaze that warms your whole life and those around you. The world may or may not call you successful according to its shallow measures. But if that fire burns bright, if you feel the joy becoming day after day, you will know, in the only way that matters, that you have succeeded. So as you move forward, do not ask only, what am I getting? Ask, what am I becoming while I get it? Do not ask only, how far have I climbed? Ask, how have I changed during the climb? Do not ask, do others think I am successful? Ask, can I, in honest silence, respect the man I am building? If you can answer yes to that last question more and more often, you are already tasting the true joy that success was meant to bring. Not at the end of the road, but with every deliberate step you take along it. To live this way, to treat success as the joy of becoming, demands that you change your relationship with time. You must stop looking at your life as a series of disconnected days and start seeing it as one continuous line of development. Each day is not an isolated event, it is a brick in a structure. When you waste a day, you are not simply taking a break. You are placing a weak stone in the wall of your own character. When you use a day well, you are reinforcing that wall. The joy you seek arises when you can look back over a stretch of time, whether weeks or years, and see a clear direction, not perfection, but progress. This is why it is dangerous to live only for peaks. Peaks are rare, big victories, great recognitions, dramatic breakthroughs. If you depend on such events to feel alive, you will spend most of your life in boredom and frustration. True success is built in the valleys. The ordinary mornings when you choose to rise, the quiet evenings when you study instead of drifting, the troublesome days when you show up and do your duty anyway. The joy of becoming visits you most often not when you stand on a mountaintop, but when you realize in a simple moment, I am not the man I used to be. That realization seldom arrives with trumpets. It comes in a quiet awareness, perhaps while performing some common task that once defeated you. Consider how you handle repetition. Most people detest repetition. They want constant novelty, new stimulation, new distractions. They call routine boring and then wonder why their lives lack depth. But repetition, applied correctly, is one of the tools by which you become powerful. Every skill is built through repeated practice. Every virtue is strengthened by repeated use. Every refinement in thought comes from revisiting the same ideas until they sink below the surface and govern you without effort. The man who embraces repetition as a friend of mastery feels joy where others feel only tedium. Ask yourself, when you repeat a useful action, do you feel imprisoned or invested? There is a profound difference. If you perform your duties mindlessly, resentfully, just to get them over with, you rob yourself twice. Once of the growth that careful work could give you, and once of the satisfaction that comes from doing something well. But if you approach repeated tasks as a chance to sharpen your attention, refine your speed, improve your steadiness, then each repetition adds a layer of competence and confidence. You are no longer just completing motions. You are forging a self. That awareness turns the most humble routine into an exercise in becoming. You must also learn to take deliberate control of your inner conversation. The voice that speaks inside you all day long is either a saboteur or an ally. When it constantly whispers, "This is pointless," you are stuck. Nothing will come of this. It poisons the joy that could be found even in effort. When it speaks differently, "This is shaping you. Stay with it." You are learning what others avoid. You are building something no one can see yet. It feeds your strength. This is not superstition. It is simple psychology. You cannot feel like a builder while thinking like a victim. Do not wait for life to change your inner voice. That is your responsibility. Learn to interrupt thoughts that strip meaning from your work and replace them with thoughts that recognize its value. For example, when you catch yourself saying, "I am so behind," correct it to, "I have begun." Many never begin. When you catch yourself thinking, "I am not good enough," answer, "Perhaps not yet, but I am improving every day, and that is within my control." When you think, "This will never change," respond, "Everything changes when a man persists long enough." Over time, this inner correction becomes a habit. The mind that once eroded your joy becomes a wellspring of encouragement. Another essential element of the joy of becoming is the discovery and pursuit of a definite purpose. You cannot feel truly alive if you wander without direction. Activity alone is not enough. Many men work from dawn to dusk and yet feel dead inside because their labor is not connected to anything they truly value. To experience real satisfaction, you must know why you are doing what you are doing. Your purpose does not need to be grand in the eyes of the world. It must be compelling to you. It might be to master a craft, to build a useful enterprise, to uplift your family, to teach and develop others, to pursue excellence in a chosen field. Once you have chosen such a purpose, align your daily actions with it. This alignment is where joy lives. A day in which you have taken even one solid step toward a purpose you deeply believe in is a successful day. Regardless of how small that step appears, you may still be far from your visible goal, but you are close to something more important. The knowledge that you are on your own true path. A man who walks his own path, however modest, feels a peace that the man copying others never knows. You must, however, guard this purpose from two thieves, doubt and distraction. Doubt whispers, "Who do you think you are to aim at such things? There's so many more talented, more fortunate, more prepared." Distraction says, "Why strain yourself? There are easier ways to pass the time. You can always begin tomorrow." If you listen to these voices long enough, you will lose both your purpose and your joy. You will sink into a gray existence where nothing is truly at stake and nothing truly satisfies. The antidote to doubt is evidence. Not imagined evidence, but small, concrete proofs that you are capable of growth. Each time you complete a task you once avoided, each time you learn something you once thought too difficult, each time you honor your word despite temptation, you gather evidence that your old self-image was too small. Take note of these proofs. Write them down if you must. Return to them when doubt tries to convince you that you are doomed to repeat your past. You are not. Becoming is not a dream. It is a process that leaves tracks. The antidote to distraction is structure. Without some structure, your days dissolve into impulses. You do whatever feels easiest in the moment, and the moment always favors comfort over growth. Set clear blocks of time for your development. Time for learning, time for focused work, time for reflection, time for physical movement. Protect these times as a farmer protects his seed. Others may not understand they are not responsible for your life. You are. As you honor this structure, your respect for yourself increases, and with it, your joy. Let us speak now of relationships. The joy of becoming is not meant to turn you into a hermit obsessed only with personal advancement. It is meant to make you more useful, more present, more capable of contributing to the lives of others. But you must choose your close companions with care. The people who surround you will either nourish your growth or choke it. Spend enough time with men who mock effort, who glorify laziness, who sneer at discipline, and you will feel foolish for trying to become anything more. Your joy and progress will be slowly replaced by shame. Seek instead the company of those who are also striving. They need not share your exact goal, but they should share your respect for growth. When you speak of your efforts, they understand because they are engaged in their own. They do not ridicule your standards. They challenge you to maintain them. In their presence, you feel encouraged to be your best, not pressured to be your worst. Such companions are rare, but even one or two can greatly increase the joy of your journey. If you cannot yet find them, be that kind of person yourself. Your example will eventually attract your own kind. At the same time, learn to bear without resentment those who do not understand your path. You will meet people who interpret your seriousness as pride, your discipline as extremism, your focus as coldness. If you spend your energy trying to correct every misunderstanding, you will drain yourself and lose your joy. Let your results and your character speak over time. It is enough that you and your conscience know what you are doing and why. The approval of every onlooker is neither necessary nor possible. The man who insists on being understood by everyone will never dare to live by his own deeper convictions. You must also develop the art of gratitude, not as a polite habit, but as a powerful lens through which you view your progress. The man who cannot be grateful on the way will not be grateful when he arrives. He will simply move his sense of lack to a higher level. Gratitude does not mean pretending that everything is perfect. It means acknowledging what is good and usable even in an imperfect situation. You can be grateful for the chance to start again, for the strength to work, for the lessons hidden in your failures, for the few people who truly support you, for every insight that lights your path. Gratitude and the joy of becoming are brothers. Gratitude says, I am thankful for what is here. The joy of becoming adds, and I am excited for what I am growing into. Together they create a state where you can appreciate the present while working toward the future. Without gratitude, your efforts become cold and joyless. Everything feels like burden. Without becoming, gratitude can turn into passive resignation. With both, you stand in the powerful position of a man who honors his current blessings while actively expanding his capacity. You will notice, as you progress, that the nature of your desires begins to change. When you were driven only by the world's definition of success, your desires were mostly outward. Possessions, positions, proofs to show others. As you commit to becoming, your desires grow inwardly refined. You begin to want more wisdom than applause, more composure than show, more respect from your own heart than from a crowd. This does not mean you reject outer successes. It means you no longer worship them. You see them as side effects of inner qualities, not as replacements for them. This inner refinement brings a particular kind of joy, the joy of integrity. Integrity does not mean perfection, it means wholeness. It means that your thoughts, words, and actions are moving in the same direction. When you say you value honesty, you speak truth even when it costs you. When you say you value health, you choose habits that support it. When you say you value contribution, you actually give of your time, skill, or resources. Each time you align your behavior with your stated values, you feel more solid. Each time you betray them, you feel divided. The joy of becoming thrives on integrity, because only a whole man can truly enjoy his own growth. There will be days, of course, when nothing seems to go right. Days when your mind is clouded, your body heavy, your work disrupted, your efforts misunderstood. On such days, you may be tempted to think, what is the point of all this talk of joy? I feel none of it. Remember then that joy is not the same as constant pleasant emotion. Even a man who loves the sea will experience storms. Joy, in this context, is the deeper assurance that even storms are part of the voyage you have chosen. On your worst days, the fact that you are still committed, still holding to your principles, still getting back up, that alone is cause for a quiet sense of victory. One of the most powerful exercises you can practice to sustain this joy is honest review at regular intervals, perhaps weekly or monthly. Sit down alone and write in simple language what has changed in you. Do not flatter yourself and do not punish yourself. Simply observe. Here I was impatient and I regret it. Here I showed more patience than I once would have. Here I neglected my work and paid the price. Here I persisted and saw growth. Here I allowed fear to guide me. Here I acted in spite of it. This practice sharpens your awareness of becoming. You see clearly that you are not stuck, that you are capable of adjustment. Awareness itself becomes a source of strength. In these reviews, also note the moments that brought you genuine satisfaction. Not the clamorous pleasures, but the deep ones. Perhaps it was finishing a task you had feared. Perhaps it was reconciling with someone you had offended. Perhaps it was resisting a habit that once ruled you. These are the jewels in your days. Keep them in view. The more you recognize where real joy has come from, the more you will dedicate yourself to the kinds of actions that produce it. Over time, something remarkable happens. The man who once felt dragged through his own life begins to feel like a participant in something meaningful. He no longer asks, "When will my life begin?" He sees that it is already in motion, right here, in the very efforts he is making to refine himself. He may still aim at large external goals, but he no longer postpones his happiness until they are achieved. He understands that the truest success is the daily experience of becoming more aligned with his highest possibilities. This does not make him naive about hardship. He feels pain, disappointment, and fatigue as any man does. But under these feelings runs a stronger current. I am in process. This struggle is not pointless. I am shaping myself. Knowing that, he can endure much without collapsing into despair. His joy is not the fragile joy of good weather. It is the rooted joy of a tree that has grown deep enough roots to draw strength even in dry seasons. And as his inner life stabilizes, his outer life begins to reflect it. He makes better decisions because he is less ruled by impulse. He builds better relationships because he is more honest and present. He achieves more in his work because he is less distracted by meaningless pursuits. Opportunities that once frightened him now excite him because he knows he has the capacity to grow into them. People who once doubted him begin to rely on him, drawn by the quiet authority that comes from consistent becoming. The joy he feels within translates into value he can offer without. This, then, is the nature of real success. It is not a distant prize that suddenly cures all dissatisfaction. It is a continuous, unfolding experience of growth in which you can stand each day, look yourself in the eye and say, I am not yet what I intend to be, but I am moving. I am learning. I am becoming. If you can say that honestly, if your days bear witness to it, then you are already living what many seek. and never find. You now see that success, in its highest expression, is not a single event, but a way of living with yourself. The question before you is simple. Will you continue to treat your growth as an afterthought, or will you arrange your whole life around the man you are becoming? Do not answer quickly. A quick answer is usually shallow. Sit with it. You have given your years to many things: habit, fear, distraction, the expectations of others. Are you willing, at last, to give your remaining years to the deliberate building of a self you can respect? One of the most powerful realizations you can adopt is this: you are already paying a price every day. There is a price for discipline, and there is a price for neglect. There is a price for telling the truth, and there is a price for lying. There is a price for courage, and there's a price for cowardice. You do not escape payment. You only choose what you are buying with your life. When you choose discipline, truth, and courage, you buy the joy of becoming. When you choose neglect, convenient falsehood, and cowardice, you buy regret. Regret is the most expensive purchase a man can make, and yet many pay for it daily. You may ask, is it not exhausting to live always striving, always pushing to become more? The answer is no, provided you are striving in the right spirit. What exhausts a man is not purposeful effort. It is effort that fights against his own conscience. When you drag yourself through tasks you secretly believe are beneath you, when you pretend to care about things that do not truly matter to you, when you bend your life into shapes that impress others but dishonor yourself, that is exhausting. The tiredness that comes from honest, self-directed growth is of a different kind. It is the pleasant fatigue of a craftsman putting away his tools at the end of the day. His body may ache, but his spirit rests. To live this way, you must stop begging life to be easier and start asking yourself to be stronger. The man who spends his days demanding lighter burdens never feels the joy of discovering how much he can carry. He remains a stranger to his own capacity. The man who accepts that burdens will always exist and chooses instead to grow stronger shoulders finds a strange contentment. He is no longer waiting for the world to change before he permits himself to be at peace. He finds peace in knowing that whatever the demand, he is developing the power to meet it. Take a hard look at the story you are secretly telling yourself about your life. Perhaps it sounds like this: if only I had been born into a different family, in a different time, in a different place. If only these people understood me. If only I had their advantage. Then I would be further ahead, happier, more successful. This story may feel comforting because it places responsibility outside you, but it kills the joy of becoming. As long as you believe that your progress depends on forces beyond your control, you will never fully engage your own ability. Change the story. Say instead, I have been given exactly the material I need to build the man I am meant to be. My obstacles are my raw materials. My limitations are my training weights. My disappointments are my instructors. I may not have chosen these circumstances, but I choose what to make of them. This is not romantic talk. It is a practical decision. Two men can endure the same hardship while becoming entirely different people. One uses it to justify his stagnation. The other uses it to justify his rise. The hardship is the same, the response is different. The joy belongs to the one who responds as a builder. Understand that becoming is never a straight line. You will have days when the old you resurfaces. Days when you fall into a temper you thought you had mastered. Days when laziness wins. Days when fear locks your tongue and hands. Do not let such days convince you that your efforts are meaningless. Progress is a pattern measured over time, not a single moment. When you fall, do not waste hours cursing yourself. Acknowledge the slip, study it, and step back onto the path. The speed with which you return to your chosen direction is itself a mark of growth. There is a quiet power in refusing to dramatize your setbacks. The immature man makes every stumble a tragedy, and in doing so grants it more weight than it deserves. The maturing man learns to say, "I fell today." That is all. Tomorrow I rise earlier, I prepare better, I stay more alert. In this calm response, he protects his joy. He refuses to let one bad day define the entire journey. He understands that a sculptor does not abandon his statue because one strike of the chisel was misplaced. He studies the error, adjusts his hand, and continues carving. One of the noblest uses of the joy of becoming is this: to support others in their own growth without needing to control their path. When your only concern is outward success, other people are either competitors or spectators. You either compare yourself to them or perform for them. But when you are committed to becoming, you start to see others as fellow travelers. Some are behind you in certain ways you can help them. Some are ahead of you in other ways you can learn from them. This removes much of the secret bitterness and envy that poisons so many hearts. To encourage another in his growth, you need not deliver long speeches. Sometimes a simple acknowledgement, "I see the effort you are making," is enough to kindle joy in someone who feels unseen. When you share your own struggles honestly, without pretending to be a flawless example, you give others permission to grow without shame. When you hold your standards firmly but without arrogance, you quietly remind those around you that they too can become more than they have been. In this way, your joy in becoming multiplies. It is no longer confined to your private experience. It radiates and awakens others. Yet, remember, you are never responsible for another person's decision to grow. You may inspire, invite, demonstrate, and support, but you cannot live their life for them. If you tie your joy entirely to whether others change, you will forever be at the mercy of their choices. Rejoice when someone embraces the path of becoming alongside you. Do not collapse when they refuse it. Your own commitment must remain independent. The fire in your chest must be fed by your own wood. As you deepen in this way of life, your understanding of arrival changes. Once you dreamed of a day when all struggle would end and you would finally relax, having made it. Now you begin to see that such an idea was childish. A living thing that stops growing begins to die. Your joy does not come from reaching a point where all effort ceases, but from knowing that your efforts are directed, meaningful, and aligned with who you wish to be. You do not seek to escape growth, you seek to sustain it gracefully. Paradoxically, this attitude often leads to greater outward success than the frantic chase ever could. The man who is obsessed with appearing successful tends to make short-sighted decisions. He grabs at quick gains, compromises his values, overextends himself, and builds a life that looks impressive but feels hollow. The man who focuses on becoming makes different choices. He asks, will this strengthen or weaken me? Will this deepen my skills, my understanding, my character? Does this align with my purpose? Such a man may seem slower at first, but his foundation is strong. When fortune visits, he is ready to handle it. When misfortune strikes, he is ready to endure it. His success, when it appears, is not a fragile structure, but a solid extension of who he has become. Do not be afraid if this path makes you seem unusual. The age in which you live, like every age before it, is full of men who trade their birthright for immediate comfort and spectacle. They will not understand why you think so carefully about your days, why you guard your mind against petty influences, why you avoid certain entertainments that dull your edge, why you choose modest and steady progress over loud and erratic leaps. Let them wonder. You are not responsible for explaining your discipline to those who have chosen drift. You are responsible for living your conviction. There will come a day, if you persist, when you will look back on your former self with a mixture of compassion and gratitude. Compassion, because you will remember how confused, afraid, and scattered you once were. Gratitude, because even in that state, there was enough spark in you to begin this journey. You will thank the earlier version of yourself for every small decision he made in your favor. Every book he chose to read instead of wasting an evening, every early morning he answered, every temptation he resisted, every risk he took to stretch beyond his comfort. Those modest choices are the inheritance you now enjoy. In the same way, your present choices will become the inheritance of your future self. Imagine that future self standing before you now. He has more wisdom, more steadiness, more strength than you currently possess. He has walked through storms you have not yet seen. He bears scars, perhaps, but also a light in his eyes that comes only from having remained faithful to his purpose. What would he ask of you today? Would he urge you to postpone your growth until circumstances improve? Would he tell you to drown your discomfort in shallow distractions? Or would he say, begin, continue? Do not betray the man I became by refusing to plant the seeds in your time. Success, understood as the joy of becoming, is not something you wait to feel until others approve of your progress. It is something you can feel this very hour if you choose to align your next action with your highest understanding. You do not have to wait for a promotion to start taking pride in the quality of your work. You do not have to wait for a perfect opportunity to practice courage. You do not have to wait for ideal conditions to begin mastering your thoughts. The door to becoming is always near. It is the next choice you make. So let this be your resolve. You will no longer treat your life as a rehearsal. Every day counts. Every hour counts. Not in a frantic, fearful way, but in a serious and joyful way. You are building something with every decision. Either a prison of habit that shrinks you, or a temple of character that elevates you. The tools are in your hands. The materials are your present circumstances. The blueprint is the man you have decided to become. When you rise tomorrow, do not ask life what it plans to do with you. Ask yourself what you plan to do with life. Set your intention, choose your actions, guard your thoughts, and walk through the day with a quiet awareness that you are not merely passing time, you are shaping a soul. Let that awareness be your joy. Let that joy be your definition of success. And as the years unfold, you will find that whether or not the world writes your name in its records, you have written something far more important. A story of inner victory, chapter by chapter, in the only place where success truly matters, within.